if you're someone that likes to think out of the box, that likes to think of things from a lens that is like, okay, I like to view all these different things into different systems, different components. If you're someone that likes to also strategize, you are probably ISE made.
Hi, welcome to Find Your Flock. Today's guest is a current senior. Please welcome Eve Gutierrez to Find Your Flock.
Hi, everyone.
Hi,
Very
Eve.
nice to be here.
Yay, thank you so much for joining us today. It's so busy being a senior. So we really appreciate you stopping in. We always like to start off with maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself, what it was like growing up in Hoboken, and why did you choose Stevens?
Of course. So a little bit about me. I'll just give my elevator pitch that I've been trained to do throughout my 4 years here. My name is Eve Gutierrez. I'm a senior studying industrial and systems engineering at Stevens Institute of Technology. I am also an ANY fellow scholar, so that is America Needs You. It helps propel first generation college students adapt to the professional world. Outside of that, I am also highly involved on campus. I am the president of the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, also known as SHPE, on campus. So we host a lot of different professional development events as well as interviewing skills, and we also go to conference every year, national convention. Um, so that's just a little bit about me. I've been involved within SHIP and the Latino community on campus ever since I was a freshman. Um, and I'll also say that I'm also a Hoboken native. So it's just like, I think this Find Your Flock is going to be really personal because it's just like, it's in my background. So I just think I'm really excited. Um, and so I believe your other questions was how I was raised in Hoboken, how I chose Stevens.
Yes.
Yes. So, leading to the question of how I grew up in Hoboken, I grew up in a very vibrant community. Hoboken is extremely family oriented. So it was very easy growing up to connect with different families, either at the park, in school, going to the museum, the Hoboken Historical Museum. My brother actually worked there at some point when he was really young. And so we used to always just go on like a Saturday and we would meet a bunch of new people. Um, so that was something that was always just like a constant like memory and very nostalgic memory of mine. Also going to the pier, of course, it's beautiful there. There's a beautiful view there. Also very nice. And in terms of how I chose Stevens, so um, I always knew when I was in high school that I wanted something very great and big for myself. So I researched heavily on YouTube, especially during the pandemic time. I mean, that was just all everyone had was screens. And I used to just watch thousands of YouTube videos on how to get into college, how to get into the best colleges, tips and tricks. So I took all of that and the fact that I was a first generation, I'm going to be a first generation college student. I had all these things according to my whys. And so I figured, okay, how in high school am I going to really get, through Hoboken High School with showing colleges, really great colleges, that I can stand out from the crowd and also still be myself. So um, I took as many AP classes as possible. I took, I believe, 8 APs and 8 honors classes in high school. So it was a lot of long nights. It was a lot of sacrifices that eventually led me to graduating second in my class. So I was salutatorian of Hoboken High School, class of 2021. And that was really great. I had to also give a speech in which it is on YouTube too. But I had to give a speech and it was like in front of so many people. But like that commemorated that force and that driving force and that strength that I had in high school that I could achieve more than what I was potentially given. And so I did qualify for Stevens Hoboken High Scholarship, it is called. It is a full tuition, merits based scholarship. And I attained that. And of course, once I found that out, even though I got acceptances, I think from Northeastern University with a similar kind of amount dollar, as well as Boston College, I ended up ultimately choosing Stevens for a lot of different reasons. Number one, because from my home. I didn't really want to go too far from home. I didn't actually think I was going to end up back at home pretty much. But that was great that I ended up choosing Stevens for just a lot of different security purposes, like not even just personal, but also mainly financial. So um, I knew that that was something that I always wanted within my reach, and I was just grateful that I had gotten all these amazing things from my accolades and that it worked off. And now I see that impact even just being a senior. I'm just like, thank God I get to graduate with little to no debt, going to such a great school. So I'm very grateful for the opportunities that Stevens allowed me to have through that scholarship.
That's awesome. I love kind of a hometown hero story, and I'm just kind of like learning everyone's different paths to come to Stevens. I know when you first came, I don't know what your original major was, but I know you switched a couple times. So I'd love to hear about, how you approached like figuring out what major was right for you and what major you ultimately ended up in.
Of course. So I came into Stevens to give context summer of 2021 because of the STEP program. So the Stevens Technical Enrichment Program. So what that is that helps bridge minorities on campus with the academic atmospheric pressure, the actual classes involved at Stevens, and to pretty much give like a trial run, I like to think of like what classes would be like here at Stevens, with the same level of like intensity of what it would look like, what you can imagine picture yourself for the next 4 to 5 years. And so after completing this program, I started to really contemplate if my decision on biomedical engineering, so that was what I intended. I had a lot of passion behind it. However, I think like I started to look more into like what classes I would be taking. And I think after taking general chemistry that summer, I was like, I don't think I'm the best chemist. So I was like, okay, so maybe this isn't my strong suit, and maybe I don't want to play with that nature of chemistry throughout my time at Stevens. So I looked into different majors. I was also very interested in marketing at the time and like getting into a lot of my more creative space. And so that's what led me for so that fall of 21 I completed as BME, or biomedical engineering. And then in that spring of 22 I decided to take a leap of faith and do marketing innovation and analytics, so switch my major to that, because I just felt like it was somewhat of a calling at the time. um, and I think like I learned along the way too the lesson that college is not linear whatsoever. It's not going to look like what your peer is going to look like. It's not going to look like what mom and dad, if mom and dad went to college, what it looks like for them. I think everyone has their own unique story and their own unique values, and they find that along the way as they're finding themselves. And so for me, I that's pretty much what happened with me. I realized like, oh, like, as much as I love marketing, I don't know if I see it full time. So I was just going through like the motions of like finding myself in college and also finding like, okay, now instead of just in the moment temporarily, like what's my why? What is my why 5 years from now? What is my why 10 years from now? And what can set me up for that? So that's what led me back into realizing, am I really passionate about like taking the business route? Or is it just more of a temporary like I don't have to have the hard classes right now. So I decided to make that like long decision throughout the summer. And I came to the conclusion after researching and purchasing different books about systems engineering that that was something I wanted to take up. I think I also remember going to the library at Stevens and finding an engineering management handbook and a system engineering handbook, and I just went through it, took a journal, and like wrote my notes on what suited me. Eventually my skill set. So I was very stats heavy, statistics heavy, having a lot of knowledge about that. And I knew that in industrial systems engineering, they utilize that a lot. I also really was passionate about manufacturing engineering, and I know that that falls under the realm of industrial engineering. So as I was starting to realize, like, wow, I actually do have a lot of personal attributes that correlate to a potential major that I could see myself doing throughout the rest of my time at Stevens, confidently, and then also onwards. So I ended up choosing industrial systems engineering, declaring that as my final major switch, as my third major switch, in the fall of 2022. So that's what led me to that, and it's been great since. a little bit about industrial system engineering, like a little snippet. It's just that it's based on a lot of theory, a lot of mathematical theories and practices, and it's using all these different approaches and how they would work in a real world setting. I definitely saw that through my first internship this past summer, but that might actually answer another question. So potential
Yeah.
questions. Yeah.
Yeah, we can definitely talk about, let's go right into the internship. So tell me about the internship that you did last summer, what we liked about it, what we didn't like about it, and how that helps shape, your future job search.
Of course. So I actually had my first internship last summer. I landed this internship by going to the SHIP National Convention of 2025. This was in Anaheim, California, so it was literally across the country, and that was the first time ever going across the country. That was amazing. And Stevens helped tremendously in making that happen. A lot of different internal departments played within that, getting funding and it was me and I believe 26 other students who were able to go through SHIP itself, the organization. Um, and I was in line for honestly really big companies because I was like, this is kind of the move because, at least I've heard like a lot of people say like, get Microsoft, get Google, get IBM, get all these big names. And then I was just kind of like, okay, like I guess I'm gonna have to do that if I want to be really, really successful or set myself up and be more competitive applicant when I do start to apply for full time. So I researched and I found that I really liked aerospace slash defense company. So that led me to L3Harris Technologies. And so I interviewed there. I got an interview on the spot. Later on, that my the HR person or representative that interviewed me at the conference was really starstruck by me. So he made a lot of different calls and a lot of different notes. And he asked me actually where I would work if I could envision myself. And I said, I could see myself at J Rock. So that's one of the biggest manufacturing hubs within the actual company of L3Harris itself. And because I did so much research, I sounded like a complete nerd in the moment because I kind of knew a little bit about everything about that facility. And I actually ended up doing quality engineering work there. So what that looked like was testing different defects of materials and working on a lot of different projects and learning more about what really the industrial engineering aspect looks like in a real life setting. And that was amazing. I mean, the company's huge and they just have so many moving parts and it's beautiful. So that led me to realize like that experience being so positive and also just the company itself had a lot of great benefits for the interns themselves. I could see myself for sure either, if not working for L3Harris Technologies, but definitely working for a company that has just these exciting benefits and these exciting opportunities within it to help support the students and as they continue to grow as engineers. Um, and yeah, so that was just a little bit about my internship. I was in Rochester for 3 months. Um, it was pretty crazy. I wouldn't recommend anyone doing this, but I had finished my last final that Friday and started work that Monday. So I had a 6 hour drive Saturday morning at like 5 a.m. But yeah, kudos to those who can do that. But yeah, it's definitely a challenge. But yeah, that was pretty much it. My experience was positive overall.
That's awesome. I mean, couldn't wait to get started, is what it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
And I know L3 Harris is such a great partner on our campus. They hire from a lot of our different majors. So that's so nice that they were also at the SHIP National Convention. So I'd love to switch gears and talk a little bit about your experiences in SHIP. I mean, obviously, going to conferences and getting internships is a huge benefit, but I'd also like to talk about maybe the leadership experience that you were able to gain and what's it like to kind of find like your your flock on campus really a supportive group that may have helped you. So if you want to tell us a little bit about the other aspects of SHIP, that would be great.
Yeah, of course. So I actually went for the first time for one of the SHIP events was actually a differential equation study session. Now, I wasn't taking it at the time, but a lot of my friends were. And I was like, wow, this organization is spending like 3 hours on like a Thursday night teaching about Diffie Q. That's already hard in of itself, but I'm just like, that's so impressive. I want to be a part of a community like this that's willing to help people, even if it takes hours for people to really like, click these very difficult concepts. So that's what kind of dragged me into SHIP immediately because I was just like, wow, there's academic support here. What reeled me in more was when I believe there was a mock interviews event. So what that looked like was everything was interview style. You had upperclassmen talking to underclassmen. These upperclassmen having experiences in a wide variety of companies and fields, pretty much asking potential questions as if they were recruiting them to see like how they would perform in like an interview style, giving feedback, talking through like what went well in your interview, what didn't, what you can improve on. So I just thought there was just so many interesting components to it. Another professional development event they had was resume building and LinkedIn branding. So there was just so many different avenues that I feel like I helped myself personally by going to these events. I helped get my LinkedIn looking what it looks like now, which looks so much better than when I had just no profile picture, no bio. Nobody knew who I was. So yeah, I think it's really cool. And as for leadership experiences within SHIP, so I started off as a sophomore doing our service chair. So pretty much we have this thing called beach sweeps, which is usually every fall we work with Clean Act organization. So they're like a local, they're a nonprofit organization, but they do local community style events. So um, in Englewood Cliffs, they have like pretty much a beach or something that looks like a beach. I could be wrong, but pretty much like a little body of water, and there's a lot of pollution in it. So we actually go for about 4 to 6 hours on a Saturday, dedicating our time cleaning up and helping that community. So that was also another amazing thing that I helped worked on as a service chair. Um, and then that's what led me to looking into more of like, okay, like how does SHIP work internally as an organization? I had that kind of curiosity. So what led me to more of a curiosity was working with the companies that SHIP sponsors itself on a national level. So having big companies like we already said, L3Harris Technologies, like at the conference itself, what it looked like having other companies there and possibly speaking to them, like Bank of America, Merck, Johnson and Johnson. So those were some partners we had when I was external vice president. And that was really awesome. It was literally getting on calls with Bank of America representatives, inviting them to campus, securing sponsorships for our organization. So that's a little bit about those two experiences. And then that's what eventually led me to president in my junior senior year. And it's been amazing just seeing the organization grow. The fact that I want to help someone like me who was at first pretty lost, honestly, navigating college and the space, and then finding myself by, taking on these roles, taking on all these opportunities that were just pretty much at my forefront. So, yeah.
That's awesome. I love when you all get to go to the conferences. I think it's such a great moment. And I don't know if students realize that. If it's not
Yeah.
SHIP, it could be SWE, it could be IEEE. There's a lot of different professional organizations that really help students kind of grow and become these young leaders that we see on campus. It's so nice.
Yeah.
I know Stevens can be academically really tough. I'm sure you've had personal moments of struggle, but do you want to share a moment and a strategy you used to help keep it going? I feel like that might be really inspirational as we turn the midpoint here of the semester. And we're in the long stretch of those last 7 weeks.
Yeah. Honestly, what helps is really having, like, I would say, really having something that is gonna switch that mode off of stress. So something that is going to be somewhat relieving, something, relaxing. For me, it is a sweet treat. It is going down to Washington Street and getting myself a boba after a final or after a midterm. And then after that, trying to meet like with one of my closer friends and being like, I'm gonna debrief you on what went wrong during my exam, what went so well during my exam, and just like, just like vent, let out these emotions that are definitely like, like that get built up in the moment of taking like maybe a 2, 3 hour exam. So there's definitely that component to it. I also really like to walk it off, like walk off the stress and just be like, oh, like, I did the best that I could. I reassure myself. It's really great to reassure yourself as well and know that like even if you maybe don't end up getting the best score in the class, at least you tried, right? And you showed up and you did it. So those are just some things that I do in terms of helping myself. Yeah, those are some things.
Great. So let's focus on what's next for you. So what's the dream job? Are we thinking we'd like to go back to L3Harris or we want to try another industry?
Yeah.
Let's manifest it and put it out there because you never know who could be watching, right?
So to whoever's watching, that may fit this, I am extremely, extremely passionate and hoping that I can work, hopefully in a beauty space, either L'Oreal, um, or there was another brand, but I don't want to butcher the name of it. But there was another one that I applied to that was in New York. I believe it was a Korean skincare brand, and also or like Sephora, like anything like that, any beauty related corporate setting, I would absolutely love to thrive in. Not only just as a woman, but I think just like there's just so much empowerment in these spaces that I feel like that they have there, and I would just really like to be a part of something like that. And maybe do either production engineering or logistics engineering or maybe just supply chain, like something within the industrial engineering aspect. I would really like to be a part of. Yeah, and as for like my experience at L3Harris, I think while I don't think necessarily defense is probably my line of like where I would like end up like being at for just personal reasons. I think also aside from that, it helped me narrow down what kind of engineering I could see myself in. So quality engineering was so much fun. And I'm like, I can see myself doing that or doing something that works within that. And I got to see also, I worked with a lot of different people that had different roles within different organizations of the company. Um, and I just think that because I just took a lot of observing and a lot of like journaling throughout my time during my internship, it helped me realize too that these roles exist, that I could do them full time if it's like someone that's working down the line or someone that's the manager of the line. So yeah, that's pretty much.
I love that the engineering is connected into the beauty and healthcare space. I feel like it's so motivational for young girls because if they only think of engineering as being robotics and cars, they're not excited about it. So I read, I think, a book, my daughter's in fourth grade, and I read Rosie Revere Engineer, and the girls were sitting in the back, not caring, wondering why I'm reading this engineering book. And then, they were asking questions about different types of engineers. And I just remember when I was like, yeah, industrial engineers, chemical engineers, a lot of them make beauty products and bath bombs. And all of a sudden, little ponytails whipped. And it's like I had their attention. And I really ought to start there next time if I want to get the whole room engaged. But I do love that. And I hope that works out for you. L'Oreal is another
Thank you.
great company that a lot of our students go to. So I'm sure you'll be able to do your networking with some of the Stevens alumni there, and keep an ear up for any of the opportunities. Um, and then we always like to end our show with, why someone should choose industrial and systems engineering at Stevens. And then we'll be able to get you back to your classes.
Thank you. I love this question. So, yeah, as you mentioned earlier I believe in the podcast, that pretty much like there really isn't that many people in industrial and systems engineering. I believe there's under 10 graduating this year alone. So please, guys, we need to be a force on campus. Pretty much industrial systems engineering, if you're someone that likes to think out of the box, that likes to think of things from a lens that is like, okay, I like to view all these different things into different systems, different components. If you're someone that likes to also strategize, if you love statistics or if you've at any point really like statistics, this is definitely like a clear like sign that you are probably ISE made. If you enjoy mathematics, that is also a really big component. Um, I can't lie about that. But yeah, so I think ISE is just really cool. as for the system engineering component, if you're someone that likes to communicate and learn about, um, or if you see yourself very business oriented, so if you like to learn about stakeholders, communicating with stakeholders, aligning yourself with the company. I think that those are also different avenues that ISE touches on. If you love supply chain, if you love learning about how things are made, either in a manufacturing setting, in a factory setting, these are all signs that like ISE may be your bread and butter. So yeah, those are just some things that I think could help hopefully anyone.
That's perfect. So I hope everybody got to learn a little bit today about ISE and the importance of it. We loved kind of sharing your journey with us today. I want to thank you, and I wish you the best in your senior year. And don't forget to check out our other episodes. Click subscribe and share. Have a great day.
Bye.
You've been listening to Find Your Flock, Season 2. I'm Dr. Sandra Clavijo. Thanks for joining us as we help future ducks find their path at Stevens. Don't forget to follow and subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube, and share this episode with a future duck.